Good afternoon and welcome to TagamiVision. I'm Phil Tagami, and with me today is our City Council President, Ignacio de la Fuente. Ignacio, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Over the last couple of shows, we've been focusing on different issues in Oakland and really highlighting the issue of crime. We had Measure R that was before the voters, which did not pass, and then that was modified to really address diversionary programs as well as suppression of hiring more police officers, and that's Measure Y. How do you think it's going?
You know, I think that it's improving, but unfortunately, I think it took a while. The biggest problem we have, Phil, as you know, I think some of the programs, intervention, prevention, are going okay. I think we're actually starting getting some real good programs and real good results on that. The problem has been to hire the 63 officers that Measure Y provided the funding for, for several reasons. One, because other cities are targeting and recruiting people. Two, because I think that, to be candid, Oakland is kind of outdated in the way that we approach recruitment, and I think we have to modify that and change that, and I will comment on that.
Okay. In looking at the numbers, I think it's really actually a pretty impressive number. I think it's 238 officers have been recruited and pushed through the academy in the last few years. However, the retirement rate has also been very high, and I think some of that's been attributed to the 3% at 50 for officers, their ability to retire, which has led really to it only being a net increase in 3 officers. I understand the combination of attrition through retirement and the new recruitment leaves us with only 3 more officers than when we started. So in looking at that, I guess the question is, how can we take this further and help us understand how long was Measure Y voted for?
First, I think that, as you will know, last Friday, actually, we had another 24 officers that graduated, and they're going to be on the ground by Monday of next week. This week is off, and then they'll be actually on the ground on next week. That will bring us to a total of about 729 police officers.
Right.
Still, the fact that you're absolutely correct. We're losing 5 a month, so you multiply that, 5 officers a month due to attrition, disability, retirement. So it's very difficult to stay, either to stay within the numbers that we attempted to stay. What I meant a little while ago, I think some cities are using some different way to attract officers, and I think at some point we're going to have to do the same. I think we're going to have to start actually paying, not signing, but hiring bonuses. In other words, we recruit you, and if you actually graduated and you with the academy, it will be so much as signing bonuses, several $1,000s, in my opinion. That's the only way we're going to be able to compete with some of the cities.
Right.
Measure Y was approved for 10 years, I believe.
10 years.
And we are in the the third year of Measure Y. Our challenge, again, is to continue recruiting and attracting and stopping really the hemorrhaging of losing officers. And you're right, 3% of 50. That means for the viewers that an officer that's 50 years old can retire, no matter how many years they have in the force. More than 5. So it is. And it's not only Oakland, but it's statewide, that we have that type of benefit that really makes it very attractive for officers to retire and very difficult for cities to keep them on the ranks.
Well, in fairness, it is a tough job. One of the things we've been trying to get as a part of this discussion is what residents can do to help make the community safer. We've been tracking crime, and as a hobby of mine, I've been tracking it for several years. We see a dramatic increase in property crime. Clearly, there's been a pretty consistent and somewhat of an uptick in violent crime, but then we also see the arrests are down. And some have attributed that to labor relationships between the city and the police. Some have attributed it to the consent decree. Others have pointed towards the court system and the DA's office, basically saying the bottleneck lies there. We had the opportunity to talk briefly with the DA, and I actually had him on the show, and he was addressing the fact that he really felt that Oakland did need more officers. And looking at this, is there one cause that you can say which is leading to reduced arrests and increasing crime?
Again, the fear of being in trouble, as usually I get in trouble.
Well, we edit these shows, so.
Right. All of the above. I think we have to be realistic. First, we have to be really candid and honest about the fact that the crime is increasing in areas of our city that have historically been safer than what they are now.
Right.
Secondly, I think that we also have to recognize that the consent decree has quite a bit of an impact in our ability of our officers to do their job. And number three, that is really probably the most important one. There is really no accountability in the system, Phil, with all due respect. The only way that you know what resources you need is if you can actually manage the resources that you have and know. And at this point, I don't think we have one of those.
So manage the resources, you're saying like GPS systems or?
Absolutely, management systems that allow us to measure the performance of our departments, in this case, the police department. Second, there's got to be accountability. That's the reason why the mayor and the chief of police were looking at geographic accountability, so we can make somebody responsible, accountable for whatever happens in that area, in that district, 24/7, not in one shift or patrol or burglaries, but 24/7. Accountable for whatever happens in that area. And we're moving towards that, except that we have not moved to that type of plan, type of program, because of many different challenges.
Sure.
Meaning confer, OPOA, and again, to be candid again, at some point, someone has got to really make decisions and implement them, and then, whatever happens, whatever challenges to those decisions will be challenges, but at least at some point you are actually implementing some of those changes. You know, it's the GPS system that you mentioned. I've been trying, as you know. We're one of probably the only large city in California that has not used technology really to manage our resources. Not only to manage the resources, but to be prepared in case of another earthquake, another firestorm.
So you're making an emergency services argument. You're saying, look, you know, these systems are not just to manage personnel and where someone may be at any given point in the day, but these are also how do we deploy our assets in an emergency or find out if an officer is at risk or injured and where their car may be or where that officer may be.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's technology the other cities are managed to use in a very effective way. It tells us how the performance of the people that are working for the city with taxpayers' money. But most of all, again, as you stated, if it's another, which will happen, not today or tomorrow, but whenever it happens, the mayor should be able, or the city council, whoever is responsible at the time, should be able to go into our command center in 17 and MLK and be able to know what all your resources are.
Sure.
We know every police car, every truck, every city vehicle is, in order for you to manage and direct some of those resources to save lives, to manage our responsibilities. And I think that for whatever reasons, we have not been able to accomplish that. And I think that we're going to be a little bit too late when we actually do it. So I'm pushing, and I think that it's long overdue for us to use that technology.
Right. And looking at the police issue, not only from a public safety and emergency preparedness aspect, but an economic development aspect, safe communities have better time of attracting jobs and in some cases, in most cases, retail. And we've been spending considerable time and energy over the last several years trying to re-energize different neighborhoods of Oakland and include the goods and services that people are looking for to really make Oakland be a destination. And there are a lot of arguments that it's environmentally responsible, that it's also a justice question, and that the consumer dollar is here. We have a very qualified universe of buyers here in Oakland. And looking at retail and the retail strategies in Oakland, how does the city council see it? You know, where do the priorities lie? Is it a citywide strategy or is it a targeted strategy?
Citywide, but targeted, obviously. But I believe that we are responsible really citywide. We get elected by districts, but the fact is that we live in the city. We're responsible for what happens, you know, throughout the city. And one of the proposals that will be actually are going to be public now, Mr. Tagami, is the fact that, and I have been talking to some of my colleagues, and what we are going to propose is a set-aside from redevelopment funds, specifically for public safety.
Right.
We're going to propose a 10% set-aside of redevelopment funds dedicated to public safety, the same way that we have 25% dedicated to affordable housing. We will
citywide strategy, not necessarily a target strategy.
citywide because it's several redevelopment areas. But when you target and when you set aside 10% of those resources, then it allows you more flexibility in other areas where there's no redevelopment. If we